back in our daily book talk episode, and for today we will talk about another famous authors and one of these stories. But before we start, let me first introduce to you. My name is Laika.
I'm Fitzgerald. I am Vanessa.
And I am Bella. So before we start, how are you guys? Did you learn something about our previous book talk episode?
Yes, I actually learned a lot from our
Me too, I learned so much. And I hope that for today's episode, we learn something again as well as the viewers. So, let's start! So to finally start our new episode, let me first ask you this question. Have you ever heard about F. Scott Fitzgerald? No, we have some of his story, but not the author itself.
No, I haven't heard about him. But upon learning about this episode and upon searching in the internet, I learned that he is really a famous writer and there are a lot of works under his name.
His life and work as well as his style sounds interesting.
Yes. So, can you give us some of his famous works?
So some of his famous works, as I read in the internet, include the Great Gatsby, which is considered as the greatest American novel and one of his most controversial.
I've heard it is famous.
Yes, it's really famous. And another are the Tender is the Night in 1934, The Diamond as Big as the Ritz in 1922, The Beautiful and Dame, The Side of Paradise in 1920, and etc. And all of his works are connected to the ideology of American dream and the concept of Gatsby.
Oh, it sounds that he is really good in writing works.
Yes, he's really good at writing and he's really famous. And so, Alam, can you tell us some information about his writing style and how much do you think does it impact his works?
Oh, sure. So when it comes to his writing styles, he used vivid imagery, metaphors to provide a visual picture of his characters and also his settings. And he also incorporated deeper meaning beyond just physical appearance. Additionally, his sentence structures mirrors the characters and settings by consisting primarily of compound complex sentences.
Wow, so what you just said right now just supported the idea that he's really great and he's really famous as a writer. And now speaking of, we'll be talking about one of his most famous works, The Great Gatsby. And this novel tells the story about Gatsby, a self-made millionaire, and his pursuit to his longest client, Daisy Buchanan, who is now married to Tom. And in this story, it was narrated by Nick Carraway, a cousin of Daisy, who witnessed it all. How Gatsby and Daisy met again, how their love rekindled, and how Gatsby ended up in a tragic way of life.
More about the character. For sure, the viewers also want to know more about.
Okay, so let me introduce you those characters and let us start with Nick Carraway. So he is the novel's narrator. He is a young man from Minnesota and he can be described as honest, tolerant, and inclined to serve judgment. He often serves as a confidant for those who trust his secrets. Next, we have Jay Gatsby. He is known as the title character and protagonist of the novel. Gatsby is a fabulously wealthy young man living in a aquatic mansion in West End. He is famous for the lavish parties he throws every Saturday night, but no one knows where he comes from, what he does, and how he made his fortune. Third one, we have Daisy Buchanan. She is the love of Gatsby's life, and the cousin of Nick Carraway and the wife of Tom Buchanan. She grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, where she met and fell in love with Gatsby. She describes herself as sophisticated and says the best thing a girl can be is a beautiful little fool, which makes it unsurprising that she lacks conviction and sincerity and values material things over all else. So fourth one, we have Tom Buchanan. He is the wealthy husband of Daisy. He is powerfully built from a socially solid old family, and he is also an arrogant and hypocritical bully. Also, his social attitudes are laced with racism and sexism, and he never even considers trying to live up to the moral standard he demands from those around him. Fifth one, we have Jordan Bailey. She is Daisy's friend, a woman with whom Nick becomes romantically involved during the course of the novel. A competitive golfer, Jordan represents one of the new women of the 1920s, cynical, boyish, and self-centered. Jordan is a beautiful but also dishonest. She cheated in order to win her first golf tournament and continually bends the truth. Next, we have Myrtle Wilson. She is Tom's daughter. She herself possesses a fierce vitality and desperately looks for a way to improve her situation. Unfortunately, she chooses Tom, who treats her as a mere object of his desire. Next, we have George Wilson, Myrtle's husband, the lifeless, exhausted owner of a rundown auto shop at the edge of the Valley of Ashes. George loves and idealizes Myrtle, and he is devastated by her affair with Tom. So those are the characters of the story The Great Gatsby. Okay.
Now, while upon reading, what emotions did the novel evoke in you?
You know, reading The Great Gatsby can stir up the various feelings. So it makes me feel nostalgic from the just age of the story, but also when I see the emptiness of behind the leaves. So love and hope and the mixed emotions of while reading the story. So as I follow the characters' journeys. So Gatsby's story in a particular makes me feel sorry for understanding his longing for something more. Yeah. So the book evokes me a mix of emotions. So from admiration for the writing to sense of the sadness for the characters dashed the lyrics.
Actually, I have a mixed emotions towards this story. Like, reading the novel was like a roller coaster ride.
Yeah,
There are times where we feel annoyed, we feel
Yes.
unhappy, and then we feel sad, especially to the ending of the text. Gatsby really had a lot of suffering in his life.
Actually, I felt pity for
Yes.
So what about the characters? Have you found some of their actions that you are agree and disagree with? And how does it affect the way you interpret the text?
So actually, it's obvious through the characterizations that many try to improve their socio-economic place or the flawed with their personal values. But maybe Myrtle is not only unfaithful to her husband, but as she changes into her elaborate afternoon dress of cream color, her attitude changes from intense vitality to impressive youth, highlighting Molly's influence in negative light. And it also when Tom, one of the wealthiest men, no longer recognized the other characters as a person themselves, but rather a means to improve his social standing. And this can be seen when he uses his money to purchase Daisy, giving her a string of pearls valued at $350,000 before the wedding. Even Gatsby understands this importance as he led Daisy to believe that he was a person from much the same stratum as herself.
And upon reading the story, and I place myself on the same situation as Myrtle, and I think I wouldn't do the same as what Myrtle did.
not being unfaithful.
Yes, because if I were in the same situation, I'd rather choose the real love over the money, luxury, or whatsoever.
Yes, because at the end of the day, love and loyalty is a virtue, especially for us a woman, because we serve as a foundations for every man.
So seeing the reactions of each of you, so I noticed that you are agree and disagree with the actions of the characters.
So now, how does the turn of the events in the story as you progress in reading the text push you to have a significant change and interpretations in the novel?
You know, honestly, I found the novel a little bit boring. I couldn't understand its first few chapters. And I found its flow and the unfolding of events in the story too slow since the narrator likes to elaborate a lot of background information about the story, which I think is related to Fitzgerald's writing style itself, since you said earlier that he really likes to share a lot of background information about his story. And with that, I find it a little bit boring. But then, I became inclined on reading the text when I knew about Gatsby and Daisy's past relationship, I became curious on how they met and how they ended up separated. And then, with these revelations, my mind actually found a path to clarity. Because at first, I suspected Gatsby as well. I was carried away by Nick's judgment to him. But then now, having these events unfold right before my eyes, I realized that this is not just an ordinary novel that is inspired or related to a certain historical event, but a novel that would teach us something about the cruelty in life in different hues and forms. And it is not just a novel with a hint of romance, but a novel that would teach us about how our dreams and hopes could sometimes lead us to downfall. And I'm really glad that I was able to read this text because it teach me a lot of things, and whereas I got to experience a lot of emotions that I was talking about earlier.
Yes, you are definitely right. And honestly, I also felt boring while just looking at the pages of this book. But upon trying to read it and upon reading the scenes or events of the story, I realized that it has a lot of lessons that we are going to learn in this novel.
Yes, for me personally, at first it's so boring to read, but there's something that I've learned, that how love can change a person, right?
Yes.
At first it's so boring, but as you read throughout the story, there are so much learnings that we learn.
We get bored, but we can get lessons and we inspired
Yes, you're right.
from what the content of the story.
Especially on Gatsby's personality.
Yes.
It's so inspiring. He show us what's the meaning of real love or
It's just kind of sad that it ended up that way. But yeah, as what like I said, love can really change a person to something better.
So, and now, looking in a feminist lens, how do you think women are portrayed in the story, and why do you think so?
So actually, The Great Gatsby by Fitzgerald uses women, particularly Daisy and Myrtle, to represent many of the flaws of the upper class. And as a result, they portray them as generally shallow, dependent, and incapable of redemption. Just like Myrtle, how she is dependent to luxury.
Yes.
And the novel paints a picture of America in 1920s before the war. So, women had no freedom, they had no remain on a pedestal prescribed by the limits of male ideals. But now, women could be seen smoking and drinking, often in the company of men. And they could also be seen enjoying sometimes rufus nightlife offered at nightclubs and private parties. And even the new dances of eras, which seemed wild and overly sexual to many. And a new woman emerged in 1920s. The appearance of the new woman on the scene evoked a great deal of a negative reaction from conservative members of the society who felt that women's rejection of any aspect of their traditional role would inevitably result in the destructions of the family and the moral decline of society as a whole. And feminism is symbolized by Jordan Baker in The Great Gatsby. So Jordan is an independent woman society with a little concern for material wealth and her appearance. So she does not place her value on what kind of man she can attract. I also remember one of Daisy's most memorable quote, like, "Alright, I'm glad it's a girl. And I hope she'll be a fool that the best thing a girl can be in this world, a beautiful little fool." So, Daisy speaks of her hopes for her infant child, which reveals a lot about her character. Her bitterness and cynicism are signaled as she expressed these devastating critiques of woman's position in society, which referenced her daughter. So, it is clear that she expressed a product of social environment that to great extent does not appreciate or value intellect in a woman. So while Daisy conforms to a shared patriarchal idea of femininity that values subservient and docile females, she also understands these social standards for women and chooses to play right into them. In this way, Daisy is more
a subversive feminist.
And of course, especially nowadays, diba, it is very evident the changes happen in the role of the woman in our society, especially on what you have mentioned a while ago, the roles of the women. Yes.
First, they are the level of the woman in that age.
Yes.
They're considered like conservative. Yes, a level lower than men, and that they should not be like drinking outside, go parties, nightclubs. It's very different today. That's like what Weda said.
In this modern society, we are now receiving a fair right.
Yes.
And we can see the difference between now and
In what way does the novel explore the ideals of marriage and its certain effects on women's lives?
So, in the novel or in the story The Great Gatsby, I think it explores the ideas of marriage through the lens of several characters. First one, the marriage between Daisy and Tom. So it represents the social expectations of wealth and status, but it also highlights the emptiness and disillusionment that can accompany such unions. So, and additionally, the relationship between Tom and Merton. So sheds light on the mistreatment of women in the marriages where power dynamics are unequal. And lastly, the Gatsby's pursuit of Daisy, despite her marriage to Tom, reflects the idealization of love and lengths of people will go to in order to attain it. And next, throughout the novel, Fitzgerald critiques the institution of marriage and its impact on women's lives, portraying it as both a source of social mobility and personal tragedy.
Yeah, I also noticed how in that time the social status is very important in order for you to have stable life or to have a marriage. It's just like marriage is just for rich to rich, and it is prohibited if you married a lower than your class.
Yes, and isn't that what happened between Gatsby and Daisy? That's why they're separated. Because Gatsby is not rich enough or has enough money to pursue Daisy. So Daisy, on the other hand, who's like wanting to get married before, and it's not acceptable that she marry Gatsby, so she married Tom.
it's not about the love pala. So it's about the money or the status
in life.
And see how the social status influenced the marriage. Yes.
Moving on, what about the character of Jordan Baker? How does her character differ from the conventional notions of femininity during that time?
So, Jordan Baker, as what we discussed earlier, Jordan Baker broke the nerves of women in 1920s. She's, whereas they say that women are expected to raise their children at home, provide emotional support for their husband, clean and tidy their house, etc. But Jordan Baker is just different. She has a career under her name as a professional golfer. She has her own visions and principles. She is competitive maybe because she's a golfer, and she has her own mindset and she speaks on what she thinks. And with that, she defies the expectation of how a girl before are expected to act in a society.
Yes, I can see that Jordan is the first woman to be independent in that society.
Yes. It's like Jordan is the representation of the woman nowadays.
Yeah.
And you can see the difference between her and Daisy when they were together. Jordan likes to speak up when they are having a conversation together with Tom, and Daisy is just there. You can really see the difference.
Opposite.
It's like she has a voice.
Yes.
So let's have another set of questions. Now, what economic conditions and class struggles are evident in the 1920s in America as observed in the novel?
So from that story, the economic condition and the class struggles of the 1920s in America, particularly the lens of the characters' lives and interactions. So despite the overall economic prosperity, there was a significant inequality during the 1920s. So the wealthy life represented by the characters like Tom and Daisy Buchanan in the novel. So the lifestyles, their strengths, and the large portion of the population, including the working.
Yes, I can see how the class standard needed in the society that time. Wherein, if you're not rich, you don't have value in that society.
Yes, it's like your value is depending on how much money they have. And it's kind of sad.
Your value and recognition depends on the family that you're from, the amount of money that you have. How do the characters represent the different social classes? And how do these social classes affect how they interact with one another? How and why?
So upon reading the story, I can say that social class has an effect on relationships in a way that it affects how people treat each other and how they are viewed by one another. Just like what we are talking a while ago. And also in the novel, there are three main types of people that are grouped, either old or new money and the lower class. So the old and new money are wealthy people and the lower class are poor. So people who are considered new money people and the lower class are looked down upon by people of old money. So the old money as represented by Tom and Daisy Buchanan. So the new money as represented by Gatsby. Then the working class poor as represented by George and Myrtle Wilson. Then it is very evident on the relationships between Myrtle and Tom, Daisy and Tom, Myrtle and Wilson, and then Daisy and Gatsby.
So we can really see how different the ideals of people from old money and new money, right? Old money is the Tom, and he's very rude, egocentric, and he thinks that he's a class above the other people, from those of the new money like Gatsby. And then, I just remembered it now, we can really, it's very obvious, the class difference, they have these two towns, right, in the Long Island, the West Egg and the East Egg. Those rich people, from old money, are in the East Egg, while those who are considered to be not so very rich people are those who stay in the West Egg.
You can see that they have already the gap between the old money and the new money.
While observing the characters of Tom Buchanan and Jay Gatsby, how do their principles and ideals about the class differ? And how about the power and wealth, and how it can be connected to the past events in the 1920s in America?
Gatsby is a loving man. All he wanted was just Daisy's love and affection. And since he came from a lower social class, he does not really care about the social status that he came from, and not that he has enough wealth. Well, Tom, on the other hand, is a rude and egocentric man, like I said earlier. He sees himself as a class above other people. And then, given that he came from old money, he inherited the sense of superiority that he thinks he possesses. And these two characters can be connected to the huge gap between the lives of poor and wealthy people in the 1920s in America. And the wealthy get to enjoy their lives, enjoy different parties, spend their money on different luxurious things. And while the poor people are stuck with low wages and are suffering from oppression. And moreover, both characters reflect how wealth and status consumed people before and how they continuously aim for the American dream.
So, moving on, does the novel present the social and economic issues in 1920s America when it comes in a race, class, or gender? Or in what way?
So yes, so from that story, the social and economic issues in 1920s America is focused on the class and gender rather than race. So while the Great Gatsby is often critiqued for its portrayal of a woman, shallow and materialistic, so it does offer from some insight to the limited agency and social expectations of the place of a woman during the 1920s. So Daisy Buchanan, for instance, is trapped in the loveless marriage and constrained by societal norms. So her inability to fully pursue her desires or make independent choices that reflects the broader gender dynamics of the time. So additionally, the characters like Jordan Baker challenge the traditional gender roles to some extent.
So with that, how does Jay Gatsby reflect the ideals of the American dream?
Okay, so let me first tell you what does American dream means. So American dream is defined as someone starting low on the economic or social level and working hard towards prosperity and or wealth and fame. And in the novel, it shows how Jay Gatsby tries to fulfill the ideals of the American dream. When Gatsby was young, he set goals and worked hard to improve. He pursued the typical American dream of gaining wealth, finding a companion, and being admired by others. Gatsby thought it was best to try and change everything about himself. And he wears a thick mask of lies throughout the story, hiding his past, changing his name, suppressing his emotions, and even adapting his word choice. Gatsby represents the American dream throughout the story. He works hard towards rewarding achievement.
Yes. And Gatsby really achieved that American dream whereas he achieved that level of greatness that this American dream was pertaining to. Whereas he gets wealthy enough, he can buy everything that he wants in the world, but still he fails to achieve what he really wanted, which is to pursue the love of his life, basically.
So to further discuss the story, using Freud's psychoanalytic theory, what unconscious desires and fears drive the characters to their actions, and in what way does it affect the plot of the novel?
So throughout the story, Gatsby is led by his unconscious and inner desires towards wealth and life of luxury. So Gatsby fell in love with Daisy during his early life, but he felt sad as they could not be together due to their class differences. So as Gatsby was impoverished and Daisy was wealthy. So Gatsby explained he felt that he was in Daisy's house by a colossal accident. However glorious might be future as Jay Gatsby was a present and penniless young man without a past. So these feelings caused Gatsby to suddenly gain motivation to leave his impoverished life behind in order to become rich and successful to impress his love interest. So Daisy eventually, Gatsby was sent off to war, and during which a man named Tom Buchanan, an extremely wealthy socialite, wins Daisy over using his wealth and social status. So after returning, Gatsby does everything in his power to win Daisy back and gains massive amounts of wealth during the process. Through this, readers are able to identify Gatsby's intense feeling on inferiority and how his motivation to become powerful was driven by his desire to prove his worth and improve social status for Daisy.
I see. So that is where the American dream of Gatsby started pala.
Yeah, you're right.
And what symbols and imagery are present in the story to reveal the subconscious desires of the characters?
So one of the symbols and imagery that was used in the story is the green light. And this green light, which can be seen in Daisy's dog, symbolizes Gatsby's longing for her. It can be seen as a representation of his love, shining as bright as this light, but too far to behold. And it could be associated with his hope and desire to finally be with Daisy again and gain her love. It can be reflected in the lines, which is at the end of the story. And as I sat there brooding on the old unknown world, I thought of Gatsby's wonder when he first picked up the green light at the end of Daisy's dog. He had come a long way to this blue dawn, and his dream must have seemed so close that he would fairly fail to grasp it. He did not know that it was already behind him, somewhere back in the vast obscurity beyond the city, where the dark fields of the Republic rolled on under the light. Gatsby believed in the green light, the orgastic future that year by year recedes before us. And another symbol used was the color white. It is often used to describe Daisy and Jordan Baker as pure and fine ladies. But ironically, it also represents their dishonesty and imperfection. And then the last one that I saw is the Gatsby's party, which could be a symbolism to his desire to meet Daisy, of his hope to see her once again, and of his dream to be with her. It is also associated with the jazz age, where cocktail parties and ballrooms are ending.
So, how does Daisy Buchanan's defense mechanism influence her decision and actions throughout the story?
Okay, so in the novel, Daisy Buchanan is made to represent the lack of virtue and mortality that was present during the 1920s. She is the absolute center of Gatsby's world right up to his death. But she is shown to be uncaring and fickle throughout the novel. At first, I believe her to be immature based on her inability to take responsibility for her actions and decisions. However, I now feel that she simply prefers to ignore her problems because there is no need for her to worry about them because of the power of money and charm have provided her.
Now, what about the way does the author's unconscious desires and fears are reflected in the novel?
So the author explores the complexities of human desires and fears through his characters and their interactions. So the author's unconscious reflected the various ways throughout the novel. So Jane Gatsby's pursuit of the wealth and status is fueled by the desire to win back Daisy Bunchanan, so the woman he loves, and his fear of being rejected by Daisy due to his humble background drives him to amass wealth through questionable means.
So throughout this book, I now appreciate the hype and the recognition of the book that it's getting. The way that it can truly reflect and it could help us to be more knowledgeable when it comes in the American history.
I agree with you, Laika. So although it may appear some confusing on when we first read the books, but once you follow the events in the story, that is when we will be able to realize how good the story is and how relatable the characters are.
Yeah, and I think after reading the story, its title now makes sense, The Great Gatsby, because it revolves around the significant character Gatsby. How he is great because he achieved the American dream that we were pertaining to and is very significant in America, and how he lost it while he was trying to pursue his desire to the love of his life, Daisy.
And also, I think that us and also our viewers will get lessons from this novel, and also a lot of realizations, which is the events that happened before are also happening in our recent period.
So true. And I think that we can learn from the book that the fact that we cannot reclaim the past and we cannot buy love.
Yes. So because as in the Gatsby and what he went through, so although he achieved everything and became wealthy, he still couldn't get Daisy back. So he cannot rekindle their love before they both shared in the past.
In there, and this is such a great talk for us as we get to share our ideas with one another and brainstorm about the novel in different lenses of analysis.
And for our viewers, keep watching on our latest book talk episode. See you again.
Bye-bye!